All right, guys, so I just wanted to go over the past 10 worst MLB teams, the teams that finished with the worst record every year from 2012 to 2022. I'm sure we all can assume the Oakland Athletics will have the worst record in 2023, but starting in 2012, it was the Houston Astros who were tanking. I believe this was the final year they were in the NL Central. You can see 107 losses, last place in attendance. Their Pythagorean was a little bit better, so maybe they were a little unlucky. They should have had 4 more wins. And then we're just going to take a look at the offense and defense based on OPS plus and then also ERA plus. So, taking a look at this offense, total OPS plus 82. Jet Lowry. How about Chris Johnson? Justin Max. They did have a few players that had an above league average OPS. Jose Altuve as a 22-year-old. He hit 290. No power though. JD Martinez before he really broke out with the Detroit Tigers. I believe he got DFA'd by Houston or traded or something, but he had an OPS plus of 86. Just a terrible team. And then Jordan Schaefer, the worst qualified hitter with an on-base percentage below 300, playing in 106 games, OPS plus at 62. What a terrible team. And then the pitching, you had a decent reliever, Lopez, appearing in actually a pretty good reliever, very effective, 64 games, 2.17 ERA plus a 187. The team had a total ERA plus of 89, so they were slightly better pitching than they were hitting. You can see Dallas Keuchel, 16 starts, 3-8 with a 5.27, only 24 years old. Jordan Lyles at age 21, 5-12 with a 5 ERA. And then you had, look at that, Cruz, a right-handed pitcher, 52 games, 6 ERA, 67 ERA plus, just terrible. Moving to 2013, once again, the Houston Astros finished with the worst record, this time losing 111 games under Bo Porter. You can see their Pythagorean 57 wins, so a little bit unlucky again. How about this offensive breakout for Jason Castro? Let me tell you, if a catcher put up these statistics in today's game, this would be the MVP of the league with how bad hitting is for catchers. OPS of 835, OPS plus of 130. Chris Carter, a man before his time, a man before people really, valued slugging like they do today. Chris Carter, 212 strikeouts in 148 games. That's not bad for him. It's really not. Jose Altuve, he hit 283, but really not a good season. On base percentages, 316. OPS plus well below league average. And then Brandon Barnes hitting 240 with an on-base percentage of 289. This team had a total OPS plus of 86. And then the pitching staff, it was actually worse with a total ERA plus of 85. Jared Cozart, the breakout young ace, 10 games. How do you do? This is an interesting stat line. 10 starts, 195 ERA, 1-1 record. What is going on with that? And look at the walks to strikeouts. That is such a fluky year. The dude had 35 walks, 33 strikeouts with a 195 ERA. Oh yeah, that's sustainable. That is completely sustainable. Bud Norris had a pretty nice season. At least decent. 21 starts, ERA under 4, ERA plus above 100. Taking a look at some of their worst players, Lucas Harrell, 17 losses. Look at Philip Humber. Listen, Philip Humber threw a perfect game, all right? He's always going to be a good pitcher. 0-8, 7 starts, 17 total games, 8 ERA plus of 51. Moving on to 2014, the Arizona Diamondbacks finished with the worst record. They lost 98 games, and they ended up drafting Dansby Swanson, if I remember correctly, with the number 1 overall pick. Taking a look at their offense, total OPS plus of 88. Goldschmidt, I mean, basically an MVP type season. Jesus, 158 OPS plus, 300 batting average, 400 on base. Not many, well, I guess he was injured, only 109 games. Did only have 19 home runs, 69 RBIs, but still a really good season from him. David Peralta at this point, another young, good offensive player. You know, an OPS 770, it's acceptable. Batting average 286. Would it kill you to walk a little bit more? Only a 320 on base percentage. Miguel Montero, the catcher. I mean, for catchers, that's pretty good. OPS plus at 95. And then taking a look at some of the worst players, Aaron Hill, 133 games, on-base percentage under 300, OPS at 654. Edner Enciarte. I remember when Edner Enciarte had a really good season. Was it that season? I think he hit 300 one season. You can see 278, it's okay, but he can't slug for anything. And then their pitchers, ERA plus 88, Evan Marshall out of the bullpen. He was a weapon. They had two decent relievers, Oliver Perez, Evan Marshall. Other than that, they had a bunch of average pitchers. Chase Anderson, the starter, 21 games, a 4 ERA, not terrible. Bronson Arroyo, the corpse of Bronson Arroyo, age 37, goes 7-4. You've got to respect it. Addison Reed goes 1-7 with a 4.25 ERA. That's just unfortunate. And then some of their worst pitchers, Trevor Cahill, 32 games, 17 starts, 3-12 with a 5.61. Yeesh. Brandon McCarthy. I thought he was older than 30 at that point. He ended up going 3-10 with a 5 ERA. Moving to 2015, the Philadelphia Phillies finish with 99 losses as they go through that rebuild after, Ryan Howard gets old, Jimmy Rollins gets old, Chase Utley gets old. They start their rebuild and lose 99 games, and they ended up drafting Mickey Moniak, if I remember correctly, and he's still trying to catch on. But who remembers the super prospect, Maikel Franco? Maikel Franco's career peak was at a series in New York City when he hit a home run, and everyone was like, oh, he's the next superstar. Look at age 22 is when he peaked. OPS plus a 130, OPS of 840, really nice season. Odubel Herrera hit 297. That's a decent season for Odubel as well. Look at the walks to strikeouts, though. He had 101 more strikeouts. Ben Revere. You got to respect Ben Revere. 1 home run. Oh my goodness. That's a power surge for him. Ryan Howard, almost unplayable at this point. He did have 23 home runs, 229 average, 277 on base percentage, and had a terrible defense at first base late in his career. And then the worst player, Freddie Galvis, 151 games. So he basically was a full-time player and an OPS of 645. And then their pitching, ERA plus team total, 82. Ken Giles. You really would have thought they would have traded Ken Giles midway through the season with these numbers. 69 games, 180 ERA, ERA plus of 214. Really effective reliever. Jared Eichhoff. Decent starter, only 8 games, but he had a 265 ERA. Jenmar Gomez transitions to being a reliever and has a nice season. You respect it. And then some of the worst pitchers, David Buchanan, 2-9, 15 starts, a 7 ERA. Sean O'Sullivan, 13 starts. I mean, who are these guys? Oh my goodness. Aaron Harang making an appearance, 29 starts for him at age 37, 6-15 with a 5 ERA. Moving on to the Minnesota Twins in 2016, they lost 103 games and had the worst record, but their Pythagorean only had 96 losses, so they did get a little bit unlucky, it looks like. Looking at their offense, Brian Dozier. You got to respect. I remember 42 home runs. What did they juice the balls? My goodness, good for Brian Dozier. Also at Target Field, that's not easy. 134 OPS plus. Robbie Grossman. That dude just refuses to swing at pitches. He walks a ton. 386 on base percentage. Miguel Sano, the young slugger. Age 23, 25 home runs. The batting average isn't there, but at this point we thought Miguel Sano was going to be a really powerful bat. You can see Byron Buxton, very young in his career, OPS plus of just 90. That was when, he kept getting injured in the outfield. And then Kurt Suzuki, Eduardo Escobar, before he became a decent hitter, OPS plus of 67 in 105 games, a 280 on-base percentage, my goodness. But the team did have an OPS plus of 98, so almost league average. That's pretty rare for a team that loses 100-plus games. And then their pitching staff, ERA plus of 83. You can kind of see Irvin Santana having a very nice year, starting 30 games. He did go 7-11, but he had a 3.38 ERA. Ryan Presley, Taylor Rogers, both decent. And then they had a bunch of starters who were terrible. Kyle Gibson, 5 ERA. Ricky Nolasco, 5 ERA. Hector Santiago, 5.5 ERA in 11 starts. Tommy Malone. I remember when Tommy Malone was a top prospect in 2K13, the video game. Phil Hughes, 1-7 with a 5.95. Who the hell is Pat Dean? 19 games, 9 starts, 1-6. Tyler Duffy, 26 starts. He somehow won 9 games with a 6.43 ERA. And then Jose Barrios was just horrific as a rookie. 3-7 in 14 games with an 8 ERA. What? And an ERA plus of 53. Moving on to the Detroit Tigers in 2017, Brad Ausmus, they lose 98 games. They actually had a decent attendance, 7th, so good for Detroit fans. That was kind of like the back end of the Tigers, the Miguel Cabrera era, the Victor Martinez era. They had Justin Upton there for a little bit, and this probably was like Justin Upton's last elite season. OPS 900 in 125 games. Nick Castellanos, pretty good numbers. OPS plus solidly above 100. Mickey Matuk, wow, decent season. That was probably the best season of his career, 276 average. You can see Miguel Cabrera kind of having his first, bad season, 249 batting average, 130 games. Ian Kinsler at age 35. Victor Martinez, Jose Iglesias, really bad year. Andrew Romine. I mean, they finished with a team OPS plus of 98, so that's not terrible. And then their pitching team ERA plus 84. Shane Green, the elite reliever. I believe he was a starter turned reliever. A lot of guys seem to do that and have success. Justin Verlander kind of had that weird period in his mid-30s where he was just okay. And this was one of those years, 28 starts, 10-8 with a 3.82. ERA plus still above league average. Michael Fulmer won Rookie of the Year, I believe the year before this, or it might have been this year, I don't know. He ends up going 10-12, 4 ERA. He fell off quickly. Yeah, Michael Fulmer peaked as a rookie, surprisingly enough. Anibal Sanchez is basically throwing batting practice at this point, 3-7 with a 6.41. Chad Bell, 28 appearances, a 7 ERA plus at 65. In 2018, the Baltimore Orioles, I don't even remember it getting this bad for the Orioles, and yet they did get pretty unlucky looking at this, but still, Buck Showalter, 115 losses in a total teardown. They ended up getting Adley Rutschman. I don't know if it was this pick, but it was one of them. You can see Machado got injured midway through the season, only played in 96 games. I think the Orioles mismanaged the Machado situation. They should have traded him sooner. They could have gotten a ton back for him when he was younger. They just held on to him too long. Or was this the year they traded him, and that's why he only played 96 games? I don't know. Actually, that probably was the year they traded him. Then you've got Mark Trumbo playing 90 games, having some home runs, whatever. Adam Jones kind of tailing off later in his career. Jonathan Scope started striking out basically every at-bat. Trey Mancini before he became good. Tim Beckham, the former number 1 overall pick. And then Chris Davis. I mean, this dude was worse than pitchers hitting at this point. The dude's hitting 168. 168 with an on-base percentage of 243 in 128 games. They had to play him. They had no choice because they paid him so much money. the team OPS plus at 89. In a hitter's park, they had a team OPS plus of 89. And then the pitchers just got destroyed. Miguel Castro, I guess, had an okay year as a reliever. He went 2-7. Givens goes 0-7 with a 3.99 ERA. Kevin Gausman, okay. And then just taking a look, Andrew Kashner 4-15, Alex Cobb 5-15, David Hess 3-10, Dylan Bundy 8-16, Jeffrey Ramirez goes 1-8 with a 6 ERA. Oh my goodness, it is sad. And then in 2019, the Tigers once again had the worst record, and they had 114 losses. Ron Gardenhire, you gotta feel this is the year that I can say you've got to feel so bad for this fan base coming into it. So I think they had like some type of rain out that they didn't make up. That's why they didn't play 162 games. But this offense, there's not one. I guess you could say maybe Nick Castellanos, but other than Nick Castellanos, none of these guys are like, they had a horrible offense where it's almost like no one had a good year. Again, maybe you could try and say Castellanos, but the dude played 100 games. He had 37 RBIs. Miguel Cabrera DHing, 740 OPS. Jacoby Jones, Brandon Dixon, Christian Stewart, John Hicks. This team, OPS plus of 78. Oh my goodness. And then the pitching, a little bit better ERA plus team total at 91. Buck Farmer seems like a computer-generated individual. 73 games, 1 start. Probably started as an opener when that was big. A 3.72 ERA. Nick Ramirez, another reliever. Joe Jimenez, another reliever. Looking at their starters, they didn't have horrible starters. Daniel Norris, 4.5 ERA. Matthew Boyd, 4.5 ERA. Spencer Turnbull, 4.5 ERA. It's just a lot of average, just a ton of average. And then you have Jordan Zimmerman going 1-13, getting paid $30 million or whatever it is, $20 million, and having a 7 ERA. My goodness. Drew Verhagen, 5.90 ERA. Moving to 2020, so this was the shortened season. You had the Pittsburgh Pirates go 19-41. Not the worst thing in the world for the Pirates. It was only 60 games, and you did get the number 1 overall pick out of this. Taking a look at the offense, Connor Moran, kind of fluky, good season because it was only 60 games. Plays in 52. Has a nice OPS of 800. Jacob Stallings. I was going to say Jacob Stallings had a really nice year. Then I look at this team had an OPS plus of 74. Oh my goodness. Brian Reynolds had a horrible year. 189 average. There is some flukiness because it's only 60 games. Eric Gonzalez, I remember when he was a Cleveland Indians prospect. And then whatever happened to Gregory Polanco? He just forgot how to hit. 153 they played him 50 games. He had a 214 on base percentage. Oh my goodness. There's a lot of pitchers that could do better than that. And then looking at the pitching, they actually had a decent year, a total ERA plus of 98, almost league average. Mitch Keller, the young prospect, 5 starts, 291. That's encouraging. Steven Brault, decent, I guess. But yeah, then you've got like Trevor Williams going 2-8 with a 6 ERA. Derek Holland, the corpse of Derek Holland, goes 1-3 with a 7 ERA. Moving on to 2021, once again the Diamondbacks had the worst record, losing 110 games. They've had quite the turnaround. I got to give the Diamondbacks credit. They definitely have a really good young core now with Zach Gallen and Corbin Carroll. But just a few years ago, they were terrible. You can see Ketel Marte having a really nice year, but only playing 90 games. Eduardo Escobar, I believe he got traded at the deadline. Carson Kelly, that's really good for a catcher. And then you've got some players, a total OPS plus of 87 for the team. Christian Walker had a terrible year. He's really improved. Pavin Smith, I think he was the 4th overall pick at one point. He's been a bit of a bust. Nick Ahmed, who's just a defensive shortstop, was the worst offensive player. And then for pitching, a team total ERA plus of 83. You've got Luke Weaver. I guess it's okay. Man, this team was terrible. They had no qualified pitcher with an ERA below 4.25. Jesus, man. What's their bullpen? I guess you got Riley Smith going 1-4 with a 6 ERA. Matt Peacock, just a terrible. Madison Bumgarner, that bust of a contract. And then last year, the Washington Nationals did do their teardown. They traded Juan Soto, and they lost 107 games. But I believe they don't have the number, I think they have the number 2 overall pick with the MLB doing a lottery system. You can see Juan Soto, they traded him at the deadline. OPS plus of 160. Josh Bell had an amazing start to the year, and then they traded him, and he was terrible in San Diego when they did trade him. But you can see, honestly, a pretty good team on offense. OPS plus right at league average, right at 100. I remember when there's Maikel Franco. So the video comes full circle. Maikel Franco goes from future superstar to bust. And then Victor Robles, remember when he was a top 10 prospect in baseball. The ghost of Nelson Cruz, also at age 41, is on the list right there. And then the pitching, just horrible. Basically, all of your starters, terrible. Young pitchers, all with 5 ERAs. Patrick Corbin, the culmination, 31 games. Wait, where is Steven Strasburg? Oh, wait, Steven Strasburg threw 1 inning and then retired. I mean, listen, the whole Steven Strasburg contract is kind of crazy. But yeah, Patrick Corbin, 6-19 with a 6.30 ERA, getting paid all that money. You've got an individual going 1-12 with a 7.10 ERA. That's not going to help things. But yeah, that is the situation. And then in 2023, we do have the Oakland Athletics sitting at 10-34. I'm sure they will finish last. I mean, you do have Brett Roker going on an MVP run. They've got a decent team offense right now. I would imagine they would come back down to earth, but their OPS plus right now is 98, and then the pitching is just terrible. I guess they have a reliever right now, Zach Jackson, who's doing decent. Mason Miller was a young pitcher who was kind of pitching well, but he's on the 15-day IL now. J.P. Sears, I believe he's from the Yankees in the Frankie Montas trade. And then just taking a look at that Japanese export, 12 games, 4 starts, 1-4 with a 12 ERA and an ERA plus of 34. Wow. And their opening day starter, Kyle Muller, 7.71 ERA. My goodness. I mean, come on. But either way, guys, I just wanted to go through the worst MLB teams of the past decade. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.